Hey, mighty man of God, Dr. Joe Martin here with Real Men Connect, where we help good men become great men God's way by helping them win at what matters and even frustrates them the most when it comes to being a husband, father, spiritual leader of their home. Welcome to the Real Men Ride Along. In my car, obviously, and I'm getting ready to go to get an annual checkup, which I advise all of you men out there who are listening or watching this to do. Get your physical. Make sure that I'm getting up in age, so I got to make sure everything works works the right way. But I want to ask you a question. Does it feel like your faith is getting stale, getting dry? Do you ever get those moments or those times when you feel like, wow, I'm praying, but it doesn't seem like God is listening to my prayers? Or you feel like you're getting into like a spiritual rut, or that maybe you just don't seem to have the same kind of fire that you had when you first came to God. In other words, experiencing a dry season, going through a dry season where your faith feels like it's drying up. Now, I want you to know that you're not alone. A lot of people, most Christians, if not all of them, usually experience what we call dry seasons of faith. And it's not something to beat yourself up over or about, but to acknowledge it and accept it. But here's the key. You don't mind having dry moments, but you don't want them to extend into dry seasons. You don't want them to extend to dry seasons. And I'm going to show you how to make sure that doesn't happen to you. I've experienced it. Pretty much every man that I've ever talked to who's a fellow believer has experienced this. And what we realize is that not everything can be a mountaintop experience. We can't expect to be on this emotional or spiritual high all the time. That's not realistic. First of all, it's not biblical. David wasn't always having a mountaintop experience when he was running away from King Saul. Elijah wasn't having a mountaintop experience when he was trying to flee from Jezebel. And I'm sure that John the Baptist wasn't having a mountaintop experience when he was sitting in jail questioning and doubting whether or not Jesus was the one. And I'm sure even Peter, after he denied Christ 3 times, he went through a season, a moment. Hopefully it didn't last long. And we don't know. Obviously it didn't last only but 3 days with Peter. So we want to have moments, but we can't have seasons. So I'm going to show you how to avoid having those dry seasons. Pretty simple, but I'm going to give you some practical stuff to help you with it. Because at Real Men Connect, we try to make sure we stay super practical and not just being spiritual. All right, here's the first thing you want to do. Fast and pray, but with a focus. Now, the key is what I put, but with a focus. Now, we know that when we're fasting, which means we're abstaining from eating or something that we know that we usually use to feed our flesh, you're starving your flesh so you can feed your spirit man and get stronger and elevated. All right? And so, but it's one thing to fast and not eat. There's another thing to fast with a focus. In other words, focus on where you need to be fed. Let me say that again. When you fast, focus on where you need to be fed. Is it in your marriage? Is it as a parent? Is it on your job? Is it in your finances? Is it with your health? Fast where you need to be fed and you're looking for answers and you need God's guidance and his hand on your life in that. Focus, fast with the focus, and focus where you need to be fed. Here's the second thing you want to do. You want to delight in God. Delight in God. But let me put my little butt on it. Delight in God, not for what he can give you, but for who he is. See, a lot of times we go through these dry seasons when our prayers are not being answered because we didn't get what we were hoping for, what we were expecting. But you need to delight in him because of who he is. Now, I mentioned, I tell you I was going to give you a practical example. I forgot to give you one for the fasting. I choose Mondays, but always choose a specific day that you're going to fast, specific day that you're going to fast. And notice I didn't say like once a year. I fast every week. One day out of the week, that's Mondays. And anybody who knows me knows that's my fasting day. And on that day, I focus on my family. I focus on my ministry as far as the men that I serve in Real Men Connect. That's what I fast for. Now, somebody else give me a prayer request, I'll do that. But intentionally, I'm seeking God for leading my family and leading the men in my life. I forgot to give you that practical example. But let's go back to delighting in God. If we don't always get what we want, we tend to go through those seasons where we're going through, I call spiritual pouting, throwing a spiritual tantrum because it's not happening the way we want to. But when you truly delight in God, That means you're distancing yourself from the outcome and you're focusing on his presence and who he is. And you're enjoying him for who he is, not what he can give you. Now, the way my spiritual father gave it to me, and a practical example for you, is that you show up even if nobody else does. In other words, you go there knowing that, God, I'm just here to praise you, not for anything that you can give me pleasure from. My pleasure is going to be me delighting in you. Never look for circumstances and things in your life or conditions in order for you to delight and enjoy God. Just delight in him. Delight in him. Also, here's the third thing. You want to stay out of those dry seasons. Worship the God who is, not the God you want. Let me say that again. Worship the God who is, not the God that you want. Now, who is the God that we want? We want the God that gives us a pain-free life, no suffering, no hardships, no bad things, no pain, nothing. We want life to be comfortable. We want life to be convenient. We want life to be predictable. We want to be in control. That's not the God we serve. That's the God you want, but that's not the God who is. That's not who the God who is. The God who is will sustain you through the pain. The God who is will be there with you through the struggle. The God who is will say he will never leave you nor forsake you, no matter how dark the day gets. In the valley of the shadow of death, he will be with you. But you won't always feel good, but he's going to be there because he is good. And here's the last, but certainly not least. So serve the God who is, not the God you want. If you want to stay out of that dry season, please continue to seek God's presence even when you don't feel his presence. Let me say that again. Continue to seek God's presence. Get into the presence of God even when you don't feel his presence. Because even though you don't feel his presence doesn't mean he's not there. God is still there in the midst of your pain, the same place he was when his son died on that cross. Jesus didn't feel his presence, but God was still there. So if you want to stay out of that dry season, don't let your feelings dictate your seeking. Don't let your feelings dictate your seeking. Continue to press in, be in his presence, even if you can't feel his presence. And I can guarantee you, it's only going to last for a moment, and then you will feel the presence of God come into your life. Remember, we're not seeking feelings. We walk by faith. We are believers, not feelers. And just because we don't like it doesn't mean God doesn't still love us. And just because things are not pleasant doesn't mean that he can't be trusted. That he can't be trusted. So I'm hoping this helps. If it does, please share with the man who you may be discipling or mentoring or trying to help, who may be going through that dry season and he's thinking, wow, maybe my faith is not strong enough. No, God has given us all a measure of faith. We have enough faith. The question is, are we just exercising it? Are we walking it? And who are we putting that faith in? So make sure your faith is always in God, not in your circumstances, not in your situation, not in man, but in him. All right? Remember, we're males by birth, but we are men by choice. So each and every day, choose to be the man that God has called and created you to be. Because a male is a terrible, terrible thing to waste. So stay strong, stay blessed, stay safe. And most of all, stay in God's grip. And I'll talk to you soon.